Good afternoon. Welcome to the May 15th, 13th meeting of the Apopka Planning and Zoning Commission. If you would please join me to stand for a moment of silent prayer and the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. During tonight's meeting, each agenda item will have a time for public comment relative to that agenda item. If you are here and you have a comment that is planning and zoning related and is not on the agenda, now would be the time to speak. Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number one, the approval of the meeting minutes from April 8th, 2025. Does anyone have any corrections or changes?
No, sir.
All right, hear a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes, meeting minutes from April 8th, 2025.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Washington. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Norwood. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number one, special exemption to request to allow child care facility in an RSF-A1 residential single-family estate zoning district. Owner, Richard Chandler. Applicant, Camila Nera. Location, 4410 Chandler Road and 4420 Chandler Road.
Good
Mr.
evening. Good evening. This is Jun Song, planner at the Community Development Department. The applicant has requested a special exception permit for a child care facility at 4110 and 4420 Chandler Road. The total size of the property is about 5.12 acre. The property has a future land use of residential very low suburban and the zoning of RSF 1A. The properties are currently used for residential purpose and are vacant. The surrounding properties are residential with single-family homes. According to Land Development Code Section 4.2.2.c, a child care facility is allowed use with the approval of a special exception. The Development Review Committee has recommended approval of a special exception permit. The recommended motion for the Planning Commission is to approve the special exception permit to allow a child care facility at the subject properties. Staff member and applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have questions of staff?
Thank you.
Commissioner Ryan?
I've got a lot of questions. Okay, I only have
Commissioner Wood?
one. Can this exemption be limited only to childcare, or can once they get the exemption down the line, convert it to something else?
No, this will be only special exception for child care facility.
Okay, so it can only be used for childcare.
Yes.
Okay, and is there any plans for the lots to the west of it? There's those two vacant lots behind it.
That's not the subject property for this project.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ryan?
Okay, I emailed several questions yesterday. I assume you received them.
Yes.
Okay, the first one is, why isn't the owner and applicant asking to rezone the property to a commercial or educational use zoning?
So the future land use is residential, and we would not support to change the land use to commercial or official office use. However, per Land Development Code, child care facility for child daycare is permitted with a special exception permit. So we believe that rezoning or changing the land use is not necessary. And then also child care facility is only permitted use in mixed-use zoning area and multifamily residential zoning, and all of the other zoning requires a special exception permit. So special exception permit for this zoning was necessary.
A special permit? You mean like a what is this? Exemption, or I mean, special exemption?
Yes.
What is the benefit of this childcare being zoned residential as opposed to commercial or educational use zoning?
You want me to take that one, June?
Sure,
Okay, so the special exception allows the planning commission in the code, it allows it a lot more conditions to be placed on the use. If it was an outright permitted use, the only conditions that could be placed on it is setbacks, landscaping, stuff like that. There's about a list of 12 criteria that's outlined in your staff report for a special exception that an applicant has to fulfill. And it's ultimately the determination of the planning commission to ensure that it meets those criteria.
Childcare facility requires a lot of state oversight. What is the maximum number of children that can attend that childcare facility?
That's under a state statute, I believe. It's per square footage. It's in the building code.
Be depending on the size of the structure. Pardon me, Andrew Hand, City Attorney. It would depend on the size of the structure and what is allowed by fire code and building code, as Bobby said. Just would remind the commission that this is not a home occupation type of facility. This is a special exception for what essentially is my understanding in discussing this with staff is that this is not a residential facility.
It's not a residential facility, but it's zoned residential.
It's not a home, so there's not it's not a house that somebody lives in.
I don't, as I understand state law, I don't think that's allowed. I mean, I'm only at a home in a residential area. My understanding is it's only allowed 5 children.
Mr. Ryan, this is a commercial daycare center. It's not a residential one. The residential ones, you are correct. If somebody runs one out of their house, it's limited to 5 per state law. However, this is a commercial use. I believe several years ago, one was approved by this board, a daycare facility off of Leicester Road, if I recall correctly.
So it's in a residential area, but it's commercial.
Right.
I just have a problem with that. Is there any restrictions on signage for the residential lot?
Yes, there is. So per code, wall sign and window signs are not permitted in residential zoning. However, freestanding signs are permitted.
Okay, now in the project summary, line 7, it states that it's safe entrance and exit. Is that correct? Did I read that correct?
So per the applicant, they're gonna demolish existing buildings and then they're gonna build a new commercial building for daycare center. And they're not gonna use the Chandler Hills Road, which is dirt road that you mentioned. They're gonna create new access from the Jason Dwelling Parkway.
Well, it doesn't say that.
Because
in the project summary, it doesn't
yes,
mention that.
right,
It
because
says that it's safe entrance and exit currently, which is not.
Ingress and egress is reviewed per the land development code when they submit a development plan for review. That's when that is handled at the development plan. You're only considering the use on the property at this stage, nothing else.
Well, why was it mentioned here whether it's going to be a safe entrance and exit?
That is a question the applicant has to answer. That's in the report. Everything's reviewed per the land development code once a development plan is submitted.
so from my understanding, what they're trying to say is that they're gonna provide a safe access from the public right of way. They don't have a concept plan yet, and then this is just for the use. So when they submit the development plan, I'll make sure they provide a safe access from the public right of way.
it doesn't talk about the future. It talks about now. But anyway, Chandler Road is that a city road or is that a private road?
That's a private road.
What's the entrance? Where's the entrance going to be to the facilities?
I'm sorry.
Where's the entrance going to be for the facility?
So, okay, would you be able to answer? Yeah.
Is it going to be off of Chandler Road?
Hold up. We're falling back into that track. Excuse me, ma'am, please. Finish the question with staff, and if it needs to be referred to the applicant, well, when the applicant comes up, then we'll ask that question. If it needs to be referred, just say we'll refer that to them. Okay?
Yeah.
We don't want to start changing people at the podium and recognize people. You're recognized now, so let's move forward with that.
Okay, so the daycare operator will not reside in the place of business as required by state law for residential zoning.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
So the daycare operator will not be residing in that facility for daycare center as required by state law for residential zoning property.
I will defer that question to.
That's the applicant's question, if they're going to be a caretaker on the property.
I sent you that question.
We got your email, sir. Yes, and that's a question for the applicant. Yes, and we would defer that one to the applicant.
I have a question.
Commissioner Washington.
Okay, all right, just real quick. There's a residential home there now, right? This is just a special exception to use the property for a child care facility. I understand that.
Right, you're
All
correct.
right. Is the existing building going to be torn down and a new building constructed?
That's what I heard from the applicant. They plan to demolish the existing
Yes.
buildings and build a new commercial building for daycare.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Very well. Thank you, sir. As a applicant, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Camila. Is there any questions for me?
Yes, I do. What is the advantage of having that property zone residential as opposed to commercial or educational use zoning?
So when we approached the city, they asked us what land we were interested in purchasing. We showed them the land, and they asked us what project we wanted to build in it. We told them that it was going to be a daycare facility, and they said that the land we could apply for a special permit. They have shown us the process which we have followed through to convert this land into a special permit so we can build a daycare.
Which you could do under commercial zoning or educational use zoning, correct?
The daycare would be a commercial daycare, yes. The building will be a daycare, a facility.
So, what is the maximum amount of children you're going to have in your facility?
The facility will be 15,000 square feet, and by DCF, we have to have 35 square feet indoor per child, so we can have a maximum capacity of 250 children.
That sounds like a commercial building to me. I think it should be zone commercial. I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? No? All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone from the public here wish to speak on this matter? Very well, ma'am. Please come to the podium. Oh, no, sorry. And give us your name and your address for the record, please.
My name's Nancy Brown, and my residence is 123 Fay Street in Apopka. And I just have a question about it. Now, if it's if it's residential, then what's to prevent them from building a house on it?
Well, it
think
has a house on there now.
Well, there's a house on it now. Are you talking about a hypothetical in the future?
Yeah. I
If
mean,
they,
with 200 and some kids, you put a house on there, that's going to be even more.
well, no, ma'am. Once the facility is built there, if they tried to come and permit to add a house, a residential house, that wouldn't be allowed. Because I think, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, that they would be way over the density, and plus you have a special exemption on that piece of land for this use only, not for residential.
You're correct. So it would be just for this use, a commercial daycare facility.
Correct. You understand
Yeah.
that
I just
if
did
once
understand.
once we've allowed this,
Mhm.
say the daycare goes out of business, and or say if they stay in business, they decide they want to build something else, they cannot. They
Okay.
can't go build a house behind the daycare for somebody to stay in. That's not going to be allowed because now that property has been zoned for childcare only, not residential anymore.
Okay.
You
I
follow?
just didn't understand that
No,
part
they're
of
not
it.
going to be able to add another thing to there. Once the plan comes and we approve the plan for the square footage, and they're not going to be allowed to put another building on that property, and certainly not a residential one.
Okay.
Not
Thank
without
you.
going through an entire process, which would be
Hmm.
onerous, I guess.
This is all new to me, and I just didn't understand
No, I understand.
how they can do that.
No, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have questions, or excuse me, have a statement from the public? All right. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to staff, or bring it back to the board. I do want to ask a question, Bobby, real quick, for clarification. If we theoretically, as Commissioner Ryan had asked, zone that commercial, just hypothetical, zoned it commercial, and the daycare went away, then would be a commercial building could or commercial operation could literally be established there.
You're
To where
correct.
with this exemption, if the daycare ceases to function or closes, it's still residential.
Correct.
So in theory, somebody could buy the lot, bulldoze that building, and build a house on it, but they could not go in there and put a convenience store.
You're correct.
So the protection of not making it commercial to fit this in, whether it's warranted in that area or not, I'm saying that by making the special exemption, it limits that to where in the future nobody can use it for a commercial use. They can only use it for this daycare and only if we approve that.
Well, to me, that's a commercial use right there. So I don't know what difference that makes.
Well, I understand that's why it's a
Yeah.
special exemption as opposed to if we change it to commercial, now anybody in the future who owns that property can use it for a commercial use. What we're doing here, if we approve it, they can only use it for this daycare and only this circumstance.
I have no problem with commercial buildings. We need commercial buildings, okay? Why do you want to restrict commercial buildings? It doesn't make any sense to me. The daycare, I'm sure the daycare is not going to fail. There's a big demand for it right now.
Mhm.
It's not going to fail. If it did fail and they want to put another commercial building, as long as it's up by code, I don't have a problem with it. We need commercial buildings. We don't have enough in that area to support all those.
But correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't remember exactly, but it's surrounded by residential homes.
Yeah, but it's on the main drag, and it's outside of the subdivision.
Okay.
It looks like if you drive by, it looks like a commercial building. I mean, commercial lot. You know, you would never know it was zoned besides the house being there, residential.
Point taken.
It's right in the main drag. It's not. It's like
No,
not
I
like
understand
inside.
what you're
It's
saying.
not like it's inside the neighborhood.
I'm not disputing your point whether it's warranted there or not, or whether it's approvable or should be approved or not. All I'm just saying is that by not changing commercial, it kind of limits them from doing commercial in the future. Now, if somebody, say the daycare goes away, say somebody buys a property and wants to make it commercial, then it comes back in front of us and we have to approve it for whatever commercial use.
I have no problem with commercial buildings as long as it's
Okay.
zoned correctly.
May I interject?
Okay,
Uh,
sure do.
Commissioner Ryan, I think you hit the nail on the head whenever you're talking about the demand for this kind of business. Every time one of these facilities opens up around this town, it seems like it goes on waiting list almost instantly. They are so busy and oversubscribed almost in a way. And when you look at the surrounding areas, there's a lot of homes and upcoming subdivisions in that area. I think this is going to be a good use of the land out there. And I certainly understand what you're saying about the commercial, but I'm comforted in the fact that it is a residential and somebody can't buy them out and put a real nice Circle K out there. because it is a residential area. I like the fact that it is residential, and even if they're going to build a commercial building, it can't be repurposed for the latest iteration of Walgreens or something like that. That's my point.
Is there any other commercial lots? I'm sorry, Mr. Howe. Is there any other commercial lots on that road?
No, sir.
Pardon?
No, sir.
No. Sir. Have you driven out there? Have you driven by it?
Yeah, I'm driven by there.
Okay.
I mean, I think the demand out there is huge for something like this. I mean,
I agree. I just wanted to do it
Yeah.
commercially.
yeah, I hear you, and I understand where you're coming from, but I think Chairman's point of the fact that they can't build a gas station there if the daycare were to fail, which there's no indication that that's going to happen. That I think that the thing about being residential is somebody could repurpose it back to a house if something happened, but if it's commercial, then they can repurpose it to Walgreens or a gas station or a Starbucks or something else, and then that's a whole different can of worms out there in that residential area. So I'm comfortable with the special exception just for that reason alone.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right.
So that said, if y'all want to move on, I'm happy to create the motion to approve the special exception. So I'm making a motion. Are you okay with that, Chairman?
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve a special exception permit to allow a child care facility at a property located at 4410 Chandler Road, as well as 4420 Chandler Road in the RSF-1A residential single family estate zoning district, subject to the exhibits and findings of the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Dumey. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a discussion now.
We can have a discussion, yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's legal to have more than 5 children in a residential area.
I think
I sent you an email. Did you look into that, Mr. Hand?
I did, sir, and that's what I was attempting to explain. So this particular, what's been proposed, is actually regulated by the city's code. This isn't, of course, any kind of daycare facility is going to have stringent state regulations, but we're talking about zoning here. The type of facility that you mentioned is not so much a facility at all, it's more of a home occupation. So it's a completely different standard of that's applied to a much smaller use of a daycare. The city, so if it were going to be in a residential home, a normal single family home, that would be the type of facility that'd be allowed, but that's not what's being proposed.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand what you're coming from. But my understanding of state law is you can't have a commercial building in residential area, zone residential, and to have more than 5 children. It has to be out of a house, basically. That's state law, as I understand.
For that type of
And
facility,
that's
yes.
why I emailed
Yes,
you to check on that.
Correct, and that is a very specific type of daycare facility that can occur in a residential use. Now, the city has its own regulations as far as zoning goes, and what the
That's
city has
true.
done by special exception.
Excuse me, that's true, but state law supersedes city law.
Well, we're talking basically apples and oranges here, sir, because we have a small type of facility that is governed with very specific rules by the state, and that's not what's being proposed. The state does not regulate to the level that the state does not. They do. There is, of course, a tiered down comprehensive plan type system, but ultimately the city's zoning, while it has to be in compliance with the state comprehensive plans and so forth, is the city's zoning. And so what the city has done is allowing the types of facilities that are being discussed in a residential area via a special process where they normally wouldn't be allowed. But that is a different type of facility than the type of facility we're discussing that is a home occupation type of facility. So the rules don't overlap. There's a specific set of rules for the type of facility that's been proposed here. There's a specific set of rules for the type of facility that would be operating in a single family home with a residing operator who lives in that home, who would be very limited to the amount of children and the type of care that would be provided. And that's just not what we're talking about here.
No, I understand that, but state law supersedes city regulations, and they won't allow more than 5 children to be in a daycare center in a residential lot.
If it were that home occupation type of daycare facility, you'd be absolutely right. But That's not what we're talking about here. So the state
what-
law that applies specifically to that type of daycare facility does not apply. There is no overarching state regulation that says you cannot have other types of daycare facilities in residential zoning. This particular facility, on the city's use table, at least it's been testified that this would be compatible with the city's use table. And there's not an overarching state regulation that prevents you all from making that decision.
I think you're mistaken, but we'll move on.
I think the semantics is what we're missing here. 5 children allowed in a residence as a daycare center, as opposed to saying allowed in residential, because there is residential areas that have daycare centers in them.
But the-
And you go to Little Tykes Daycare, there's more than 5 kids in it. That's why we're making the exception on this particular one. But
I think state law is clear, but like I said, I emailed you to Mr. Hand to research it, and he came up with a different conclusion.
okay, well, we rely on him for the legal part. All right.
I need clarification.
Okay, Commissioner Washington.
And maybe I didn't ask the right question. The existing house there, is it being torn down?
As
Is the existing property being torn down?
yes, per the applicant, yes.
Okay, so it'll be a brand new building used for daycare.
Yes, new building will be used for daycare.
Okay, and what would be the upside in terms of the number of kids in this building?
I have to defer that question to answer by applicant.
Who said 200?
No. If we can recall her to the stand, but we're not talking from the audience. Your name and address for the record, please.
Camila Neira. So the facility that we're planning to build is a daycare facility of 250 children.
250. Okay,
So currently our plan, we just did all our surveys. We don't have any plans yet, but the plan is to build it on the land, the back end land that it's far from the house.
okay.
So we give enough space to be from the school, and
Yeah.
then the entrance and the exits will be through
Okay.
the main road.
All right, I can see it because you have 5 acres to work with, and you can knock down the house, put in a bigger building, and have parking. Okay, that's good. I'm clear.
Thank you.
Okay, just for the record, the house is going to be removed.
So right now I cannot say yes or no because the building is gonna be in the back end land. If
I
we need
see.
more space, then we will demolish the house.
No, hold
But-
on. No. That's
Yeah,
not what
Commissioner Doomy.
that's not what we've been discussing here.
That's right.
We've been discussing that the lot was going to be cleared, and my motion was the expectation that that lot would be cleared and a new building would be constructed, not a building behind the existing building.
No, because it's Chandler Road 4410 and 4420.
Right.
So what we can demolish the house. We don't plan on using the house. It's just because the other lot is back end.
Right.
We said we can start construction here, and it's also far away from the other residential house in the back. So we wanted to give them their privacy as well. We don't want to build next to them.
So maybe in that case, I should strike my motion and we could create a special exception.
You very well. You may do that.
Yeah. So hold on a second now.
Let me finish.
If you need us to demolish the house, we can. We have no issue. It's going to be a daycare facility.
Right. Because we don't want a daycare behind an existing house. My motion is going to be predicated on the fact that that house is going to be demolished and you guys are going to construct a new building there.
Yeah, in your motion,
Yeah.
it says right here, it says the planning commission's role is you may approve, deny, or approve with conditions. So
Right,
the
so
condition would be the
I'm
demolition
going
of the
on
house.
The third.
Okay, we
So-
can do that. There's not a problem.
Right.
But whatever you tell me, it's what we will do. We just want to build a daycare facility. If we need to demolish the house, we will do so.
Do you have a question for me? All right, Commissioner Ryan.
Mr. Howe, why did you recommend the commercial? residential zoning as opposed to commercial.
Property already has a residential zoning.
Recommend the special exemption.
Yeah, the recommended special exception was because we believed that the house was going to be demolished on the site. So the code has a whole list of special exceptions per zoning district, I think, which we've talked about already, where you can have certain uses within zoning districts that you have to fulfill so many criteria that's noted in the code.
The staff report didn't say anything about demolishing the house, though.
That's what we believed. Your vote, you can either vote to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. If you don't go with the staff report, that is your prerogative, and you can choose to deny it.
No, I understand that. I was just pointing out that you were talking like, anyway, I guess you just forgot to put it in the staff report.
Anyone else? Anyone else have questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, bring it back to the board.
Can I add something?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Mr. Doomy, I have the survey here.
Right.
So the house that you're talking about is right here. This is the dirt road, and this is Jason Dooley.
Yeah.
So we are purchasing these two lots right here. This lot, it's flat, high, and we were planning on building the facility from here to this way.
Right.
Because the school was here, and last time we were here, they told us, how because of the proximity of the school. So the reason why we decided to build it here is because it was farther away from the school, and it will have an entrance from the main road. So we will not have to make our families go through the dirt road. So that's the reason why we decided to build it in 4420 Chandler Road. But we can demolish, and this can stay back end or for parking. But that's the only reason we decided to do it. Not because we want to use the house for residents.
Right, but it's also I don't think it would be workable to have a commercial road as a dirt road for a daycare. So, I mean, that's just not going to work. So you would have to
Demolish.
demolish, and you'd have to create a standard road up to the city standards to service the location off Jason Dwelly Parkway.
Out of
I mean, I
Jason.
think that's what you're saying, but you're
Correct.
you're
So
kind of going on a sideways talking about dirt roads, and we don't want that.
no, we are not using that.
We don't want a dirt road going to a daycare.
Correct. Me neither.
Yeah.
I don't want my
think that would be
families
good for your
to.
business.
I don't want my families to go
The
through
city
that.
code would not allow a dirt road
Right.
to be accessed for that.
So let's talk. Did you have anything else?
No.
So up here as a board, as a motion, I'm going to create a motion with the special exception to approve it. Go ahead.
One question I have.
Sorry. I didn't want to.
Go ahead. Commissioner Wood.
This is for Bobby. You can probably answer this for me. This has to come back to us again to approve the lot and everything.
If the building's under 25,000 square feet, the land development code says no. However, it's the discretion of the director to make that determination. I'm not the director, I'm not the community development director. I'm the planning manager, but in the acting role, I would make that determination that it would come back to the planning commission as there's concerns with the surrounding residents. Seems like there's been concerns raised tonight about access, the home, access from Jason Dwelly, Chandler Road. So I think that would necessitate bringing it forward to public hearings.
So that can be included in our motion.
Yes, you can make that motion. Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
I think I know better.
Okay. So let's back up here. Are we good? I'll create the motion to recommend a special exception, predicated that the house is torn down, a new building's constructed, and the roads are brought up to city code. Correct. Does
Or-
anybody have anything else you want to see in there?
Well, do we want to make it predicated on us reviewing?
And we could do that too.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. You guys like that? Okay. I'm pretty fine with that. Does anybody have any? I mean, I would like to ask that you put, 20 mature oak trees on there, but that's not going to happen. So
25.
25. Okay.
25.
You okay with the motion?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
The only thing,
Commissioner Washington.
Chandler Road is not a city road, it's private, right? And it wraps around up to a new subdivision that we approved not long ago, and it connects to Kelly Park Road. So if we talk about Chandler Road, do we need to define what part of Chandler Road they would be obligated to upgrade?
Chandler Road is a private piece of property.
Yeah.
The Chandler Road that you're talking about on the project that came forward several months ago, that applicant dedicated right of way to the city for construction of that Chandler Road. I believe they're going to do construction of that Chandler Road right of way as part of their project. And that was Chandler Hills, I believe, was the name of that case.
Okay, so it's gonna be improved.
Yeah.
Good. And then how far will it come down and wrap around towards the applicant's property?
No, it's in a different area altogether. It's off of Kelly Park Road, that portion of Chandler Road you're referring to. This is off of Jason Dwelly.
Okay, well, still, my question still is valid because, you know, from Jason Dwelly, you're going to have Chandler Road as dirt. And we're saying we're asking them to improve that road, but we probably need to tell them how far.
No, I think that's a great question. What I meant whenever I was talking about improving the road was on the property itself, the road on the property.
Defer to the city engineer. He wants to address the
Good.
Chandler Road issue.
Good afternoon, Vladimir Simonovsky, city engineer for the record. Chandler Road is actually, from what I see on the map, on the property appraiser, it's the little road that goes to the house on the west side that is in the back of the current house. So that's a separate property, and there's another property just to the south of that. The other road that wraps around, goes into the subdivision, it's called White Dahlia Road, I believe. So that's unrelated, and that's a public road. So basically, what we're going to request from the development once gets into approval process, it's going to be to provide a legal access easement, cross access easement from these two properties. They're going to combine into one to the other two property to the west side. Because just for safety reasons, public safety, of course, that driveway it's not acceptable at this point, and it's just too close to the other road that leads into the subdivision.
You know the width of Chandler Road? You know the width of the Chandler Road?
No, it's hard to tell from that area. I can't see. That's probably a small, maybe some millings, maybe some little paved section, but it looks like the remaining of it is probably dirt road going to the back of the house, of the second house on the west side.
Is the owner here?
The property owner?
Yes.
Yes, I believe so.
Can I ask a question? I just want to know what the width of the
Sir,
road is.
hang on. Sir, could you please go name and address for the record, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
I know you've been holding on to that road for a long time. You didn't want
Hold
to
on,
give it up.
hold on, sir. We need your
Sorry.
name and address for the record.
Richard Chandler, 4410 Chandler Road,
Thank you,
and
sir.
4420
Thank you.
How long is Chandler Road? What's the length of it?
miles.
It's a mile. It'll go straight through that next subdivision. What's
Yeah,
the width of Chandler Road?
15 feet.
15 feet. So there's not enough room to put 2 lanes there.
No, it's just an easement.
Thank you.
That all you need?
Anybody else have a question? Thank you, sir.
Okay, well, this is going to go away?
Yes.
You won't give it up.
No, they're going to have to provide a cross access.
I know, but Chandler Road's going to stay there.
My phone up to that.
No, that's not over a mile. I just asked. We just said a mile.
Commissioner, I would just point out that any discussions are testimony, so we need to be able to hear the testimony.
I know, but there's only 50 feet, so that's kind of.
Mr. Chandler says the Chandler Road goes for a mile, so it goes past there, which is what you're pointing out. So basically, my concern is, in my opinion, I don't think there should be access to those 2 lots to Chandler Road because it's only 15 feet across.
Excuse me. Good. Thank you.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We cannot put a road.
Yeah, 15 feet right. Right.
Excuse me. Can you please, if you haven't have a conversation, please take it outside.
So, Mr.
Okay,
Doomy,
thank you.
I think you should add that there should be no access to Chandler Road, since it's only 15 feet wide,
Okay.
and they cannot be brought up to city standards.
Okay. So then I have a question. I'm okay with that, but let me ask the question of the applicant. If we're going to talk about Chandler Road, does that? And my question is, does that
Okay.
change?
Ma'am, can you please come back?
This takes a little longer, but it's good to make it all clear. Chandler Road. Is this, if we have no access to this road, does that affect your business plan?
No.
Okay. That's it.
That's it?
Okay. I'm ready whenever you guys are ready.
All right. And there is a concern with 250 kids, how many cars, and I realize a lot from that neighborhood, but it does seem to me that is a lot of traffic. That's going to be 250 vehicles in the morning, in the afternoon, or 200 vehicles or whatever it is. So that goes into that thought process too, with the load on the road and the new subdivision. So
That really has nothing to do with the zoning. Does it?
it has to do with making a special exception to add something in that neighborhood that adds 250 vehicles in that neighborhood.
Actually,
Yeah,
you're
I think it does.
You're right.
Okay.
I stand corrected.
All right. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead with your motion.
New motion. I'm going to make a motion to approve a special exception permit to allow a child care facility at a property located at 4410 and 4420 Chandler Road in the RSF 1A Residential Single Family Zoning District, subject to the exhibits and findings of the staff report, with the following 4 conditions. Condition number 1, the existing building is demolished. Condition number 2, all roads are upgraded on the property for good egress and access according to city code. Condition number 3, the building, before it's built, comes back and is reviewed by the planning commission again. Condition number 4, there is no access granted to Chandler Road.
Is that viable? Bobby?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Very well. Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Doomy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
Motion carries. All right. Number 2, ordinance 3098, small scale future land use amendment 2501 Rock Springs Road. Owners Miguel Khalid, location 2501 Rock Springs Road. Mr. Song.
Good evening. This is Junson Planner at the Community Development Department. The applicant has requested a small-scale future land use amendment for the property located at 2501 Rock Springs Road. The property is approximately 9.63 acres in size, is currently vacant. The current future land use designation is county rural, and the applicant requested to amend it to RVLS, residential very low suburban designation, which allows up to 2 dwelling units per acre. Surrounding properties has a future land use of county rural with a residential use and office with school. The Development Review Committee recommends approval, and the recommended motion is up to approve the future land use amendment from county rural to RVLS for the property located at 2501 Rock Springs Road. Staff member and applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have a question for staff? Commissioner Wood.
This may be a premature question, but how are they going to handle stormwater? I've been looking at the other areas around there, and I really couldn't find any retention ponds. Or is that going to be handled down the road?
I'm sorry, I missed your questions. Could you please repeat the question?
Stormwater. How is that going to be handled on this lot? Is this premature to be asking this question?
So that's something we will consider when they turn in the when they apply the development plan.
Okay.
As of right now, we are only consider about changing the future land use and zoning. So we have not looked up the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions of staff? And correct me if I'm wrong, that's in the Wekiva protection area?
Yes, right. That's
Okay, so
why,
they have special rules about their water drainage and runoff there, don't they?
yes, Orange County has sent us email requesting the state the special condition about their Wakeva note about the Wakeva study areas, and if you may, I would like to defer that question to applicant.
Okay.
Hi, Elizabeth Crane on behalf of the applicant. You're asking about the Wakaiva protection area that's to the back of the property, correct? So it's our understanding that, so this development is going to kind of mirror a development that's over at 2600 Rock Springs Road. Obviously not right there against the Wakaiva protection area, but there's going to be no homes that are back up against that area. So we're going to be in compliance with the county's requirements.
Okay, my question was more directed towards Commissioner Wood's question about and I know that I think there's different rules for water runoff in that protection area. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so we'd have to follow those rules.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Anyone have questions of the applicant? Thank you, ma'am.
Of course.
Does anyone from the public here wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for motion and discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the change in future land use designation from county rural to RVLS residential very low suburban, finding the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development code and compatible with the character of the surrounding areas based on the findings and facts presented in the staff report and exhibits.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Mott. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Wood. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, ordinance 39099, changes zoning 2501 Rock Springs Road. Applicant Elizabeth Crane. Location 2501 Rock Springs Road. Mr. Song.
For the record, this is Johnson Planner at the Community Development Department. The applicant also has requested rezoning for the property located at 2501 Rock Springs Road, which is approximately 9.63 acres and currently vacant. The applicant has requested to rezone the property from T transitional to the RSF 1B residential single family district, large lot district. The surrounding area includes county rural residential zoning and institutional use for Rock Springs Elementary School. The Development Review Committee recommends approval, and the recommended motion is to approve the rezoning from T transitional to city RSF 1B for the property located at 2501 Rock Springs Road. Staff member and applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have questions of staff? I do have one question. It's RSF 1B, which it says, according to this, 5 dwelling units per acre, but then it says the future land use is very low suburban allows 2 dwelling units per acre, so that would supersede that. So it's 2 dwelling units per acre is all that's going to be allowed.
Yes.
Okay, very well. All right. Is the applicant here? Do they have a presentation?
I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but happy to kind of explain what they're planning on putting on the property. Basically 18 single family homes. The price point is $850,000 per home, which the applicant has done 2 studies on that support those findings for price points. They're going to be 85 feet wide lots, so large lots, not packed in multifamily. So
Anyone have questions?
Is it a gated community?
not gated.
Oh, the city has to pave the streets, huh?
I believe the developer we'll be putting in.
Unnecessary. Sorry.
The impact fees pay for streets, right? All right. Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
All right. Is anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? Very well, sir. Please. Your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Manso, 163 Phase 3, Apopka. So I'm just concerned with I believe they say it was 14 houses, now I'm hearing it's 18. So I don't know. But my question is, what type of fencing are they going to build with the other surroundings houses for the privacy? And if it's just going to be low fence, high fence, or what kind of fence. And also, if this is going to affect the taxes, because it's changing from rural to residential. This is going to be like city taxes now, and it's going to affect our property. So,
Okay. I can answer a couple of those questions. We might have to refer to the staff. If whatever your property is zoned for and your tax rate is not going to change because the property next to you is changed unless your property was encompassed in that property. You follow? Turn your mic. Oh, I can hear me fine. Do you understand that your property is not, the tax rate won't change on yours? In other words, if somebody built something next to you and the tax rate was going to go up because it was commercial or whatever, it's not going to affect your tax rate there. You follow?
yes.
Unless your property, the zoning is changed or something changed, or it's annexed into the city, or it's in the Orange County and goes into the city, your tax rate's not going to change. Your second question about the density, that I don't have an answer for that, but maybe Mr. Song or Mr. Howe can answer that, because here, when I asked the question, it was going to allow 2 dwelling units per acre. Well, there's 9 acres, we're putting 18 houses. That's a little more than 2 dwelling units per acre. So then that's not following what it says here, which confuses me. The future land use, and this is, we're changing the zoning, but the future land use says very low suburban 2 dwelling units per acre. So I also have a question.
It's capped at
Can I
two
go back
dwelling
to the?
units an acre. Per the comprehensive plan, it's capped at 2 dwelling units per acre because they're in the Wakaiba. There's policy within the comp plan that says anything within the Wakaiba is capped at 2 dwelling units per acre.
Okay, but it's not in Wakaiba.
This property's in the Wakaiba
is.
study area. Yes, sir.
Okay, maybe I'm confused here. I'm dense.
Comprehensive plan overrides
Okay,
zoning.
9.63 acres, 18 dwelling units.
9 times 2 is 18. Yes.
I'm sorry.
9 times 2 is 18.
Okay,
Yes.
so no
We don't round
no
up.
green area, no nothing.
They have to account for that. That's the maximum density they can get, but they have to put on open space, stormwater, streets. You can discount probably 20% of the site for all that stuff right off the top when you do a site development.
Right. Okay. So it's that I understand that. Okay. Does that answer your question, sir? Does that help?
Yes, I just have a follow-up question on the zoning. It seems that everything in the area is changing from rural to something else, and eventually, I don't know if everything else change, and you're surrounded by every property that's around your property is city, then by default it will have to change to city. We will be forced to change zonings to.
That's not necessarily true. I understand your concern that where
Yeah,
your
like
property
everything
is.
is changed. Yeah.
They can't force you to change your zoning on your property because the property next to you is zoned different. That's not going to change. Now, I understand your concern of having building around you, but if you're low density residential and you're on a 5-acre lot, nobody can change that zoning or force that to be something different. You could apply and ask for it, but they're not going to change that. But if I'm understanding what you're asking, they're not going to change your zoning. It's not going to change your taxes. Now, it will have an effect that you'll have houses close to you or around you that you maybe not have now, but it's not going to change your zoning or change your tax rate.
Okay. And the other question was the fencing. What plan the contractor have on separating the property?
Okay, that would be something in when they bring the plot plan or the plat to be approved. Am I correct, Bobby?
Yeah, that's dealt with during the development review plan stage.
Correct.
This would be under 25 dwelling units, so your land development code does not require it to be a public hearing. As it's under 25 units, they go straight to DRC level approval.
Okay.
The only thing that would come back here is the plat. That's it.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The plat plan. So, do you understand what he said, Mr. Howe said? There's not a requirement in this case for them to put a barrier, a wall, or a buffer zone between you and that property. But you could voice your concern when it comes back here for the plat plan. You could voice your concerns about that.
Understood. Thank you.
Well,
Commissioner Rush, go ahead.
I appreciate the gentleman's concern, and I understand what Bobby had to say too. But he needs a comfort level of knowing it's going to be a fence or a stone fence around the property. That's what the gentleman's asking about. He deserves an answer.
Yeah,
So,
I'm gonna have 14 new, I don't know, 8 new neighbors in the back of my property, so that's concern. Yeah.
Well, we can do that.
So what kind of fence is being built there?
All right. All right, sir, if you have any more, we'll have the applicant come back and we'll ask that question and you can get an answer.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Ma'am, thank you.
Elizabeth Crane on behalf of the applicant. We actually discussed this at the community meeting that we had before even annexing the property into the city. The developer is planning on putting up a fence that will have to be in accordance with city code. So whatever the height requirement is for that, that is what we will be doing. But it is their intention to have a fence and not be bad neighbors.
Okay.
Do you know what type of fence you're planning on using?
I don't know what type of fencing they're using yet.
And doesn't the city code, isn't it a 6-foot fence is the max?
Yeah.
So the gentleman that was just speaking was asking if it's a high fence, and it's not. It's a 6-foot fence. That answers his question directly. At the maximum 6 foot.
Right.
Maximum.
Or they can decide to do something different. They can go higher if they want, but they're, okay,
would have
so
to
as
go-
a practical matter, they are putting up fencing and putting a barrier up.
Right, but if you went higher than 6 foot, don't you have to go back and ask for an exception to that?
Correct.
So, and that's a whole different.
Well, hopefully it won't be a PVC fence.
I'll make a note to the
Now
developer
for
about
another
that.
day.
Well, a comment. Considering the price point of the homes, I would think the residents could enjoy something better than a regular plastic fence. You say price point is like 600, 650 or something?
850.
Excuse me. 850.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, sir? I'm sorry. I want to make sure he understands what's being
No,
said.
you can speak directly to him.
Sir, did you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they are going to put a fence. All right. Any more questions? All right. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak on this matter? Name and address for the record, please.
Angela Messina, 123 Fay Street. I just wanted to, I guess, basically ask her if we're allowed to talk to them regarding the fence type.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Like, will we get to find out when you guys are meeting and all that stuff? Because we have the same concern.
I don't know when.
We back up to you guys.
Yeah, so we have 2 more meetings in front of the city commission, which obviously come to then, and I can give you my business card, so if you want to discuss once we get further down the road to the planning part.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this matter? Very well. Bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to find the proposed change of zoning from T transitional to RSF-1B, residential single-family district large lot, consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development code, and compatible with the character of the surrounding areas. Recommend approval of the proposed change of zoning based on the findings and facts presented in the staff report and exhibits.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Commissioner Washington. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Ryan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item 4, ordinance 3101, rewrite of the comprehensive plan.
Good
Mr. Howe.
afternoon or evening now. Bobby Howe, Planning Manager. I'll be going over this presentation myself, Dr. Son, and Attorney Hand as well. As you recall, there have been several workshops in regards to the rewrite of the comp plan. First one was in September of 2024. The last one was in February of this year. And this ordinance proposes the rewrite of the comprehensive plan with the exception of the transportation element. And the city contracted with the Regional Planning Council in 2021 to have them conduct the rewrite. Representatives couldn't be here this evening due to illness. And joint workshops were held back in September of 2024 and February 11th, 2025 for the comprehensive plan. And that was between the City Council and the Planning Commission. Following these workshops, staff incorporated the requested changes and comments that were given by members of the community, the Planning Commission, and the City Council into the final document that was hand delivered by the lovely members of our staff to your houses.
Yes, he was lovely.
We sent the good looking guys, not the ogres. So the comp plan is like a big map for the city's future growth that outlines long-term visions and goals for at least 20 to 30 years. And keep in mind, this is a policy document. It does not establish regulations, such as what we've been talking about with the Land Development Code on some of the previous cases. Land Development Code, for example, provides specific rules for development such as building size, setbacks from property lines, lot sizes, and driveway lengths. It does carry the comprehensive plan, carries legal binding authority, provides the foundation for zoning codes and development regulations. So basically, it is the base, and the Land Development Code is based upon the comprehensive plan. Keep in mind the comprehensive plan in cases does override the Land Development Code, such as the density that you had considered in the previous case. It provides the policy foundation for local planning and land use decisions, and all jurisdictions within the state of Florida are required to have a comp plan. The rewrite includes the following updates to the future land use element. There are some things that have carried over from the previous comp plan to the proposed new draft of the comp plan. Updates to the housing element, infrastructure element, conservation, recreation, open space, capital improvements element, intergovernmental coordination element, which are all required elements, and the incorporation of a new resilience and sustainability element. We compiled and completed data and analysis for each element to guide and support the goals and objectives of the comp plan. So basically, all the goals and objectives that you see when you first open up the comp plan, they're all based on data and analysis, data inventory and analysis. That's how all those policies are derived, and that's in any comp plan that you would look at within the state of Florida. Also within the comp plan, we did incorporate, as you recall, Wild Oaks had a joint workshop. We incorporated some of the town center standards that needs to be in the comp plan in order for that land development code policy to take effect. And it basically touches on density within the Wild Oaks area, which was already approved through a development agreement by the City Council back in 2022. So our recommendation this evening is approval of ordinance number 3101, the rewrite of the comprehensive plan in its entirety, and authorize staff to transmit it to the Florida Department of Commerce. I will turn it over to Attorney Hand. We have learned of some new legislation that has been approved by the Florida legislature known as Senate Bill 180, which will kind of stymie some of the things that we have sought out to do. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Hand.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
Pardon me?
I just said thank you, Bobby.
Thank you. Just going over Senate Bill 180 and what has occurred. On the last day of legislative session, that Friday, or what would have been the last day of legislative session had it not been extended, there was a bill presented and it was amended at the last minute, and that includes some of the provisions that I'll discuss tonight. It's a very lengthy bill, but there are two of note and one in particular of note. And in the last section of the bill, the one that's most directly relevant to the comp plan rewrite here, there is some legislation that, if this bill becomes a law, would affect every county in Florida. It cites federal disaster declarations for Hurricane Debby, Hurricane Helene, or Hurricane Milton. For any county that is named in one of those declarations, the bill is applicable. With those three declarations, they cover the entire state of Florida. So even though it's not stated in the bill that it is a statewide law, it will be a statewide law if it becomes a law. And what this law does is it states that any municipality within those counties, and of course the county governments, any special government
May not propose or adopt any moratorium on construction, reconstruction, or redevelopment of any property damaged by hurricanes. Um, that municipality or county may not propose or adopt more restrictive or burdensome amendments to its comprehensive plan or land development regulations, or propose or adopt more restrictive or burdensome procedures concerning review, approval, or issuance of a site plan, development permit, or development order to the extent that those terms are defined by Florida statutes. So essentially, and one other important thing I'll point out is that this is retroactive, would be retroactive to August 1st of last year. So this could affect not things going forward that municipalities have done, just not only future legislation, but past legislation as well. So that is the import here. Of course, this directly affects the comprehensive planning process. The bill does not contain any um, any details as to what more restrictive or more burdensome is. So we're left simply with the rules of statutory construction, at least until it's interpreted, to make that deduction, which appears to be very, very broad in its nature. Uh, Accordingly, uh, while most of the provisions within the comprehensive plan, as I understand it, at least the amendment, are not more restrictive, some may be, and if this bill becomes a law, in other words, if the governor signs it or does not sign it, depending on the date that it's presented to him, as long as he doesn't veto it, it will become a law. Uh, Anything that's more restrictive in the comp plan may not be allowed to be in the comp plan. And this particular restriction runs for a period of 2 years. It'll be until 2007 that this particular piece of legislation is in place. There is another provision within the bill, and I won't go into as much detail with this one. This is prospective looking, and in the future, if a disaster declaration includes a particular area, county, and so forth, then that county would be prohibited, or local government within the county, from creating more burdensome, more restrictive regulations for a period of a year from the date of the disaster declaration. So we know we have at least, if this bill becomes a law, 2 years of these requirements being in place, unless, of course, it's amended at the next session. And there is the potential that this may be an ongoing type of situation, depending on what type of hurricanes and disasters we see during hurricane season for the next foreseeable future.
Okay. Does anyone have questions?
I do.
Commissioner Washington.
What would these restrictions look like?
Well, I think, and of course, without any guidance from the legislature, it would be any type of potential restriction that is more burdensome. So we could look at examples. The comprehensive plan may not. Maybe Bobby, you could
Yeah,
be
so
specific.
I know one of the main things was this increase in open space. I believe that was some of the concern from some of the council members, planning commission members, city council members, upping that to like 30% on some sites. That could be one thing. There's a policy that we identified that limits density north of Sebastian Springs Lane on the east side to 1 dwelling unit per acre. Currently, the comprehensive plan limits it to 2 dwelling units per acre because it's in the Wekiva. That could be considered to be burdensome, so we might have to do away with that. One of the things also is the removal of the HDR 25 policy, high density residential, which some of you, I believe, were on the planning commission when that was approved. Allows 25 dwelling units per acre in certain areas of the city. We might have to put that back in because that could be seen as taking away rights from somebody. We have a policy in the comp plan currently that if you have in the draft of the proposed comp plan, if you were on city utilities and you were contiguous to the city, you'd be required to annex into the city. That might have to be removed as well because you'd be forcing an annexation on somebody. So those are some examples. Also, the resiliency element, resiliency sustainability element, that's a brand new element. That could be seen as burdensome on somebody. That might have to be removed altogether.
I have a question, and maybe I'm missing something here, or maybe you can give me a little bit of oversight, what was the goal? In other words, what were the politicians trying to get brownie points by doing this? What is the goal of that, changing that rule? Is it to stop a county, like say if I own a house and the hurricane tears it down, now I've got to go to a code level that was way past what I had, or I couldn't rebuild my house in the manner it was? I don't understand what the goal of that is.
It is a disaster management bill, and of course, not being present there, but deducing from the rest of what's in the bill as well as the things that I've read about it, I think the idea that the legislature is putting forth is exactly that, sir. It's to not interfere with any kind of reconstruction efforts and to make sure that reconstruction can proceed, I won't say as quickly as possible, but without new or additional burdens than maybe in place that were in place prior to last year's hurricane season, or at least prior to August 1st of last year, the date to which the bill is retroactive.
So that seems that would fit a very narrow definition. In other words, homes that were built to a standard between that date and today, or the next hurricane, would be affected, but anything built prior to that would have no effect, would it?
Not quite following as far as will it affect existing buildings?
Correct. The house
Under the
built
comp
in
plan?
92, and it's damaged by the hurricane.
Well, there could be things in the a local government could create new regulations and so forth, or a comp plan amendment that would affect a particular reconstruction. So, yes, I mean, the bill would capture some of that. But again, I think to your point, at least what I'm taking, it's a very specific type of problem, and we have very, very broad legislation, trying to address a very specific
well, it's
problem.
a sweeping thing that affects everything we do to take one to resolve one circumstance. That's not really that common. Okay. All right.
It is an unusual piece of legislation, and that's
an understatement.
Certainly the truth.
Okay. Anyone have questions? Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Wood.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. In our comp plan, we're saying that the first floor has to be above the 100-year floodplain, correct? I think section 4-1-2.
Yeah, and I believe that is in the current comprehensive plan. Yeah, I believe you're referring. Let me.
I took it out of this book.
Yes. So that's the draft.
Yeah.
I believe that policy is carried over from
Yeah.
our current comp plan.
So based on this law,
Mhm.
if my current resident was at 25,
Mhm.
I can rebuild it at 25. I don't have to go to the 100.
That would be my understanding. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And we couldn't enact new legislation to force you to go up to 100, for example.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Ryan.
The laws you're talking about, sounds like to me it's like they want to grandfather in any houses that were built with the old code. In other words, you have to bring them up to current code. Is that correct?
At least for it's not so much that specific that it's regulating or grandfathering structures in, but it is essentially freezing, from a certain aspect, the local government's ability to create, what is referred in the bill as a more burdensome regulation. So you can't make things harder on builders, in other words. So from a certain point of view, yes, I think that's accurate. But it's essentially freezing it. It's for a period of time. I mean, it's not indefinite. It does have a timeline, and it's tailored to deal with these past hurricanes from the preceding year, 2024.
So I got a question. So
Commissioner Dumey.
hypothetically speaking,
That portion of the bill. There's many other portions of the bill, so I'm only discussing two portions. It's a massive bill.
so hypothetically speaking, given that the comprehensive plan is, kind of think of it as like the cap over the land development code, right? Does that prohibit us from changing the land development code to making, say, green space, raising it from 20 to 33%?
Yes, it's not just the comprehensive plan.
So
I'm
it
kind of
does.
picking on the comprehensive plan because we're specifically talking about it right now. But the bill goes on with moratoria, it limits moratoria for reconstruction. It limits any type of land development regulations, and it limits the procedural aspects as well.
to essentially grease the wheels and allow reconstruction to occur uninhibited. So it goes beyond just the comprehensive plan. Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
Pivoting back to this
Go ahead.
are we good on the comp plan?
So, Mr. Howe, when you say the comprehensive plan is a policy and that it is not the land development code, but yet there seems to be some crossover where the comprehensive plan is the initial authority, and then if I understand correctly, then the land development code gets into very specifics.
You got it correct. Yes.
Although there are some specifics in the comprehensive plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that's a good way of explaining it. There's
Okay.
some things on comp plan that are very specific. Comprehensive plan, in a lot of cases, it overrides what's in the land development code, such as the density we considered at an earlier case. The zoning allowed 5 units an acre. The comp plan only allows 2 max. That overrides it. But you're absolutely correct in your summation of it.
So is there any value to getting those two more congruent with each other so that you don't have conflicting, 2 dwelling units, 5 dwelling units, and then trying to interpret which one is the more superior?
Yes. So what we would do once the comp plan is finished, the new comp plan is adopted and finished, we'd go back and redo the land development code to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so at some point in the future, there'll be a review and rewrite of the land development code.
Correct. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Because as I read through this, I have questions, and I was sitting. I printed them out. I'll give them to you.
Okay. All right.
It's probably 15, 18 pages.
Oh, wow.
And that was my biggest. Is this the comprehensive plan, or is this more or is there some crossover between the two?
Yeah.
Because I certainly wouldn't want to, mix them up. But I'll give it to you.
Appreciate it
tonight. Thank you.
Well, given your
Commissioner Dewey.
that I'm definitely against this, because I think that in the comprehensive plan, if you're saying that we should harmonize it to the comprehensive plan, to me, we absolutely have to go 33% land development or 35% green space in this city. We need to have our green space be congruent with Orange County. That's my opinion, and based on the fact that I believe we need to protect our ecology and our trees and what makes the city beautiful. And I would like to see that in the comprehensive plan if that's overriding the land development code, because I really think that belongs in the land development code. But if you're saying,
however, if I understood the attorney correctly,
yeah,
that could easily be construed as burdensome and restrictive at this moment.
For 2 years.
And
for 2
put
years.
on hold for a period of time, yes.
For a 2-year period of time going back to August of 2024.
Right.
So while I understand what you're saying, and I understand that you could do that, you probably shouldn't do that until after 2027 and hope that there's not been a disaster between now and then, which would also extend another year for every disaster.
I would advise you, I'm not discounting, I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly, Mr. Doomy. I think open space additional is good. However, the legislature has the upper hand on us now.
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
at their mercy.
But the thing is, this needs to be, this is really where it should be, in my opinion. This is where it should be, not the comp plan.
Right.
But if what was just stated was that the comprehensive plan is kind of the superseding document, then that's where it goes. I would rather see it here. I'd rather see this fixed and done correctly, but that's not really our wheelhouse. But if we're voting on the comp plan, we need green space. We need to increase the green space. And if you're saying even if we did it today and it doesn't go into effect until 2027, I would feel more comfortable with that than kicking the can down the road and saying we'll address this in 2027 when it could go in effect. Because it's not going to say that it can't, just because we put in there it would go in effect in 2027 whenever that law expires. It's not going to be thrown out that it's never going to go in effect. That's my point. I don't believe I'm wrong on that, but somebody
Well,
could clarify.
let me clarify. We're voting on the rewrite of the comprehensive plan, not the specifics of the rewrite, correct?
Right. So we're requesting you make a recommendation tonight on the rewrite of the comprehensive plan. We had planned to take it to City Council next week, but we're going to need some time. We would like your recommendation either to move forward, either approval or denial of it, whichever. But we're going to need time to look at what's burdensome, and I threw out some of the things from examples from this current or the draft that could be construed to be burdensome. And then once we narrow that down, then we'll take it to the city council and then transmit it to the state for their review. And then it goes back to the city council again for adoption. It goes back to the state of Florida. So it's still a 3-4 month process afterwards.
And for clarification, for the purposes of this particular provision, it's applicable between August 1st, 2024 until October 1st, 2027. So for that period, that's where the city would have an issue of creating more burdensome regulations or policies, regulations in the LDC, of course, policies and within the comprehensive plan.
And that would
What
refer
is
to
the-
green space.
What is the number on that bill?
180. And particularly section 28. I'd be happy to.
I can look it up. I just was curious.
Can I ask one more question on this?
Go ahead.
Just for clarification, Mr. Hand. Because we put it in here, it would be non-effective, but it would go into effect on October 1st, 2027. Is that correct? Or would it strike the whole document as being null?
No, at this point, I think what I'm hearing Bobby say, right, is this is not a law yet. Right. It's still a bill. We have an enrolled bill. We have an engrossed and enrolled bill. Probably will become a law. Seems like it might.
It does. Sure.
Seems very likely that it will. That being said, at this point, you have a finished product,
Right.
comprehensive plan, and so it's fine to take a look at it. But if this does become a law, then yes, certain parts of it may need to be dismantled, and a comprehensive plan update could be adopted sooner than later. Just some of those portions may have to be taken out, and then there would be a new process if the city wanted to continue pursuing those policies within, at the earliest, if this stays the law, if it becomes the law and stays the law as it's written now, at the earliest October 2nd, 2027.
I mean, I like the changes that were made in the comp plan, but I just feel like if we miss an opportunity to kind of tighten up on some of these green space requirements now, we may not get it again for a long time.
Well, I think the problem is that
It's going to get thrown
their
out
hands are
anyways.
tied. If we all voted unanimously, we want the green space changed, and they can't do that at this point.
But they can do it, and it won't go in effect till October 1st, 2027. That's what I understand.
Well, if you
It would be.
Well, it wouldn't be in place. You'd still have to go. There's timing lines when it goes through transmittal hearings and so forth to the state. And so, no, I mean, basically the city could take the work product and shelve it and then restart the process to incorporate those once the Senate Bill 180 moratorium is no longer in effect, would be essentially what the procedure that the city would be looking at.
Well, this is the proverbial fly in the ointment, because I don't really want to discount all the work you guys have done on this, because you've done a lot of work. But I mean, this is a very strong. I feel very strongly about the green space issue.
Well, I mean, we had the workshop.
Right, and it was brought up there too.
Okay.
But it was brought up there, and it was also discussed that really belonged in the land development code, and I believe that's where it does belong, in the land development code. But if we're not going to change that, then I feel obligated to put it here.
Well,
Push for it.
Mr. Howe didn't say that the land development code wasn't going to be changed. He
No.
said it's going to be reviewed.
It'll be reviewed, and eventually it will be changed to reflect the new comprehensive plan. If the new comprehensive plan rewrite gets adopted, then we'll have to go back and make sure things are consistent, because the land development code has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that would be the next thing that we would start. That would be after the adoption of the comp plan.
And that's my point, is that if the comp plan says that we have to increase the open space, then we have to change the land development code to harmonize it based on that statement there.
And that would be one of the things, Mr. Jimmy, that we would have to review in the comp plan to see. It might just be a vague policy that says preservation of open space shall be required on sites. We got to go back and take a look at it and see if it specifies a number. then yeah.
I don't really like the number being specified in the
Yeah.
comp plan. I like it being specified here.
And our code specifies 20%
Right.
on most sites. So that might be where we run into an issue at.
So I'll just make a comment. I'm not an attorney. I will say from experience in dealing with the state of Florida legislature and some legislation, et cetera, and that type of thing, I would recommend that we approve this at this point in time. Obviously, the department has to go back and now assess this bill and see if there's anything that is not in favor of what this comprehensive plan is, and that in October of 2027, while I don't like the fact that you'd have to come back at this again, for me it leaves it cleaner to come back again after the fact, after this timeline is expired, because if it gets too cumbersome, too convoluted, I feel that there's a potential exposure for litigation, which then just costs even more money to the city. We might prevail, the city might prevail, but not after there's been a large legal expense to try and prevail. So it's while I understand, Commissioner Doomy and his, thought process and what has been shared, I just would suggest that we go, okay, here's what we got today. Obviously you're going to delay, city council because you need, time to review. Okay, then there's that. Okay, now it goes to city council with the new bill. Then it can go from the city council, then it goes to the state of Florida, then it comes back to the city council, then it goes back to the state of Florida. I mean, this is a long process of multiple entities reviewing, the process. And believe me, when it goes to the state of Florida, their first thing that they're going to look at is specifically for this bill. With any municipality, county, entity in the state of Florida, do they believe, and I would be shocked if they didn't come back and say, you need to rewrite this because this is not, if the bill is signed.
So to your point, the governor has till July 1st to sign the bill, correct? Or let it go into law. What would be the consequence of tabling this discussion we're having tonight till the July meeting? And what harm would that cause to the city?
We would ask that you either give us a recommendation of approval or denial tonight for it. That way we can look into a little bit more as to what needs to go forward and what can't go forward. In my opinion, my professional opinion, I believe this draft has encompassed everything that both workshops have had between the Planning Commission and the City Council. We had public input through the internet. I think it'd be best if we get a recommendation tonight from the Planning Commission.
I agree with you, but I have a hard time getting to approving something based on what somebody else may or may not do, and we won't know for 6 weeks.
Well, if we don't know what's going to affect us, we can't stop in our tracks and wait for them. We move forward. What if it doesn't pass and we put this off and drag it out? We don't have any control over them, so we pass or deny or make our recommendation on this, and whatever happens. We don't have any control over that, and we can't stand here and just twiddle our thumbs waiting on them to make a decision.
So it sounds like there's probably a majority up on this board that wants to agree to move this forward, and that's okay. But if I decline to do that, I'll tell you the reason my no vote would be because of the green space situation, open space. So
It's fair.
That's completely fair, and you can add that to the record. You can vote no and say why. All right. Any more questions? Commissioner Wood.
Bobby, this is the one thing I see missing from this comprehensive plan, and it may not have to be included in this, is protection for adjacent property owners,
That would be in the property rights element.
which you sent me.
Right, yes.
And it's really, I take a look at some of the developments around here
Mm-hmm.
and the lack of communication and ownership. between the developer and adjacent property owners, where things are agreed to and then things are changed between them and the city in certain cases, and the adjacent property owners are not notified. I see cases where property lines or relationships um, weren't were misconstrued, and that um, developers were allowed to go on the adjacent property owners and make improvements to their property at the detriment of the adjacent property owners. And one of my major concerns is also when everything's done, um, what type of indemnification does the adjacent property owner and the city have with what was built? Um, two examples we're going with right now is Border Lake and Clear Lake Estate. Obvious, and this predates your department. I understand that. But the cities has multi-million-dollar bills coming on both sets of properties that we now have to eat. The developer came in, they did what they did, and moved on to the next project. Also, during the construction cycle, they're invading adjacent property owners' property to complete their job, to make their micro world without taking consideration the macro world. Code enforcement, when you come to the city, they say, it's a civil suit.
What does that have to do with
Well, that's what
what's in front of us right now?
Well, what I'm asking is, should this be included into the comprehensive plan? Some type of protection for the adjacent property owners.
Protection in what way? We're here to protect the adjacent property owner. That's our job.
But when it moves beyond us, and it goes to city council, and then it gets approved, and the actual work begins, what type of protection is there for the adjacent property owners? It's out of our control.
Protection of if you're talking about somebody egressing into somebody else's property, that's for the police department or for code enforcement. That has nothing to do with us.
I'm not saying it has to do with.
You said they were going on somebody else's property, and that was your. I'm just trying to narrow this back down to the subject matter at hand.
Well, as I said when I started my question, does this belong in the comprehensive plan?
Does what specifically?
Protection to the property owner.
Define protection of property owner. That's a very broad thing.
Okay.
That's like saying safety. It covers everything.
Invasion on. I'm the developer. Okay, we'll say I'm the developer. I'm doing my thing, and I come on to the adjacent property owner's property to do my job.
Police issue, code violation issue, not a planning and zoning, and it's not. We're not going to write in the code. Rule number such and such. You're not allowed to drive on the people's property next door while you're developing. That makes no sense. It has nothing to do with this.
Well,
it sounds like trespassing.
It has nothing to do with the matter at hand.
But what you run into the issue is that the city doesn't have the teeth to go in and enforce it.
But why should the city?
That has nothing to do with planning and zoning. That has to do with the code enforcement. Has to do with the police department.
That's a property owner would have to call the police department.
If the property owner calls the police, we're not involved in that.
That's not us.
You don't call 911 and it rings here.
Sounds like trespassing to me.
Yeah, that has absolutely nothing to do with this.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, it would be a trespassing issue. Okay. Usually, if you are doing construction and you need to get on the neighbor's property, you get a construction easement to go on their property. That's usually how I understand it works.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. Bring it back to the board for a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 3101, the rewrite of the comprehensive plan in its entirety, with the exception of the transportation element as authorized by staff to transmit to the Florida Department of Commerce.
If I could just interrupt, it's a public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I got distracted. Y'all got me wound up. Okay. Is anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? Very well. All right. His motion can stand, correct?
I can say it again.
No, no, that's
You're
fine.
good.
All right.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Mott, second by Commissioner Ryan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah. Nay.
Thank you. Would you
Sim-
like to state why you're opposed?
Simply for the reason that I believe we need to address the open space, green space, contiguous area and harmonize with Orange County sooner rather than later.
So noted. Very well. Motion carries. I would like to make, I don't know if this maybe should be with new business or old business. If we have something like this that's going to be a long contentious thing, this needs to be put at the end of the meeting. We've got 3 applicants that have to sit here through this that really doesn't relevant to them. So I think in the future, let's try and put that at the end of the meeting. If it's going to be a long drawn out
We can do that. This is based on the way the agenda is set up. It's based on the ordinance numbers, so everything's in numeric order.
Okay, well, why so you're saying we can't do that?
You so wish, you can change the
Yeah, I can
agenda
do it.
around.
All right, I will
It's your
next time.
discretion.
All right. My apologies to the people here who had to hear our long drawn out discussion there. All right. Item number 5, ordinance 3103, small scale future land use amendment, 438 North Park Avenue. Owners Nicholas DeAngelis and Stephanie DeAngelis, applicant Nicholas DeAngelis. I hope I'm saying that right. 438 North Park Avenue. All right.
Did a hazing ritual on a mirror. I forgot to change the slides.
I'm sorry. Oh,
For the record, Amir Hamza. Good evening, everyone. I'm a planner. The applicant has submitted a small-scale future land use amendment from county low-density residential to city commercial for property located at 438 North Park Avenue, just north of Burgess Street and south of East Summit Street. These are the vicinity and aerial maps of the 438 North Park Avenue site. The total site area is 0.66 acres. The applicant is requesting the future land use amendment to be able to sell the property as a commercial property. The future land use, as mentioned before, is a county low density residential and proposed to change to commercial, which has a floor area ratio of 0.25, totaling max of buildable 7,187 square feet of buildable square footage. Zoning is transitional, which is also proposed to change to community commercial zoning. The Development Review Committee has recommended approval. The recommended motion is to recommend approval of the future land use map amendment from county low density residential to commercial for 4038 North Park Avenue based on the findings and facts presented in the staff report and exhibits.
thank you, sir. Anyone have questions of staff? All right. Very well. Is the applicant here? Did they have a presentation or available for questions? Okay. Anyone have questions of the applicant? Very well. Is anyone from the public here wish to speak on this matter? Pretty much out of bodies, I would assume not. All right, bring it back to the board for a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion finding proposed change in future land use designation from county low density residential to city commercial compatible with character and surrounding areas, recommending approval of future land use amendment subject to the findings of the facts presented in the staff report and exhibits.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion by Commissioner Norwood. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mott. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 6. Ordinance number 3104, change of zoning, 438 North Park Avenue. Owners Nicholas DeAngelis and Stephanie DeAngelis. Applicant Nicholas DeAngelis, 438 North Park Avenue.
For the record, Amir Hamza. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from transitional zoning to community commercial zoning for property located on 438 North Park Avenue, just north of Burgess Street and south of East Summit Street. These are the vicinity and aerial maps of the 438 North Park Avenue site. Again, the total site area is 0.66 acres. The applicant is requesting the rezoning of this property to be able to sell the property as a commercial property. From the previous PowerPoint, the future land use is proposed to change from county low density residential to commercial, and its zoning is transitional currently and is proposed to change to community commercial to match with the proposed commercial future land use. The Development Review Committee has recommended approval. The recommended motion is to recommend approval of the change of zoning from transitional zoning to community commercial zoning for 438 North Park Avenue based on the findings and facts presented in the staff report and exhibits.
Thank you, Ms. Hamza. Any good questions of staff?
No.
All right. Anyone have questions of the applicant? All right. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this matter? All right. Bring it back to the board for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make another motion. Find the proposed change in the change of zoning from T transitional to CC community commercial compatible with the character of the surrounding areas. Recommending approval of the change of zoning subject to the findings and facts presented in the staff report and exhibits.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion by Commissioner Norwood. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Woods. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Site plans. Oaks at Kelly Park, Phase 3B replat. Requested to recommend approval of Kelly Oaks Plot 3B replat. Applicants Genevieve Labuda, parcel location 2747, 2753, 2759, 2765, Abor Dune Avenue. Mr. Howe.
For the record, Bobby Howe, planning manager. The applicant's requesting a replat of lots 225 through 228 of the Oaks at Kelly Park, Phase 3B, to accommodate a lot line shift to allow for utility construction. These are existing lots. There's existing infrastructure that you can see on the aerial photograph, and the addresses are on Arbor Dune Drive. Lot 228 has decreased in width by 15 feet, and lot 225 has increased in width from 55 feet to 70 feet. This is in the form-based code area. Remember, there are no minimum and maximum lot size requirements in that area of the city. There are no additional changes to the plat. This is consistent with the major development plan, construction site plan, and with Florida Statute 177, which is platting. Development Review Committee recommends approval, and recommended motion is approval. Myself and the applicant are available for questions.
Very well. Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff?
No.
Okay. Anyone have questions of the applicant? Nope. All right. Is anyone from the public here wishing to speak on this matter? Very well. Bring it back to the board for discussion and motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval of the Oaks at Kelly Park Phase 3B replat.
Thank you, sir. A motion by Commissioner Washington. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Ryan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Do we have any old business? Do we have any new business? Meeting adjourned.